Hello everyone. So I was able to watch a screening of The Mauritanian. This is a brand new film which stars Tahar Rahim, Benedict Cumberbatch, Jodie Foster, and Shailene Woodley. So this movie is a screenplay based off of the memoirs of a man who spent 14 years in Guantanamo Bay for being suspected of recruiting for the 9/11 attacks which occurred in New York City in 2001, where they had no evidence against him and he wasn't even convicted for a crime during those whole 14 years, but he was held in Guantanamo and subject to very vivid and terrible forms of torture that was placed upon him and everyone in Guantanamo. And this is basically his story and also these stories of both sides of the lawyers in the courtroom who were fighting for and against this man, and the realizations of both sides of how terrible Guantanamo was and just the conspiracies and the whistleblowing that was coming out of the prison. So without further ado, let me get into my full review for this film. So right off the bat, every single one of the performances in this movie are absolutely stellar when they're given good dialogue and good screen presence in the film. Benedict Cumberbatch and especially Tahar Rahim are absolutely incredible in this movie, and they have knockout performances, but a lot of the times they're in kind of uninspired set pieces that I found just didn't really have any symbolic meaning to them. They were just very open and plain and not interesting, mixed with a lot of just the dry dialogue and I don't even want to say subtle emotions and acting that they were kind of directed. A lot of the times it just felt like quiet scenes that weren't fully needed. But the performances in this movie, when they're given great material, are fantastic, and that is the number one drawing factor to this movie for me. Jodie Foster and Shailene Woodley are pretty great in this film too, but they play the two lawyers who are defending the prisoner in this film, and a lot of the time they're just sifting through documents and not a lot of emotion comes out from their side. A lot of it comes out of them reading this man's story and realizing the subjugations of the torture that he was put through. And that emotion is kind of conveyed in their reactions, but mostly you're getting all these hits from watching these terrible scenes of torture and manipulation that Guantanamo and the prisoner guards were basically experimenting on the prisoners in the prison. There are some really good shots about when Benedict Cumberbatch's character is figuring all of this out. And same thing with Shailene Woodley and Jodie Foster's characters, where as they're reading the documents, we're living out the past days of this man's life and just how much of a tragic story this man has been through, especially during his time in the prisons. And it does a decent job showing you how bad Guantanamo was, but only from his perspective. I wish we would have got to see a little more about the prison outside of this man's life and why it was so bad. Sometimes we hear him talking to other prisoners and you can hear throughout the film how much more broken they're becoming, but you don't know exactly why they are. You can pretty much guarantee that they were subject to a lot of things that he was, but not quite the same. We didn't really get anything about why the prison guards were doing this, why they were trying to do so much of the torture that they were doing for what seemed like very purposeful reasons. There just wasn't a lot of research or spotlight on why they were doing what they're doing and why what they were doing was so evil. And I wish we would have gotten a lot more of just time and explanation based off of that. They do dive pretty deep into, like I said, just torture, depravity, Al-Qaeda, terrorism, the effects that it can have on people who get caught up in it, like this man was. Well, not ever being a part of the larger picture, but he was being framed for essentially. And I also found too that a lot of the time the people who were fighting so hard against him were scapegoating this man, but I found the movie didn't do a good job showcasing really the thoughts of these people. It was just blind hate was the reason they were doing it. And I just, for them being members of the military and working with so many people abroad, so many cultures, religions, the fact that they were so eager just to throw this person away when they very well knew that he had no charges laid against him and he was being held in a prison unlawfully and subjugated to torture, that they were so eager just to let this person die and be the face of Al-Qaeda and the 9/11 terrorist attacks didn't feel sincere from a directing standpoint, didn't feel real in terms of just how people react or how these military members would have truly reacted to this person's case. Benedict Cumberbatch, like I said, does a good job portraying what I wanted. I just wish that a lot of these villains, quote unquote villains in the movie, were more static characters and just had more growth and they weren't just blindly hating somebody. Sometimes in the movie too, the soundtrack was so off and not fitting to the movie, where very quiet scenes were, it was just a wonky soundtrack that I found didn't really fit in terms of the setting, the moods that were going on, the feelings that the characters were portraying, just the tone of the scenes. I wish that there would have been a little more working care put into the soundtrack of this film. But like I said, it does go into the torture pretty vividly, so if this is something that you're not exactly comfortable with, you will see people shackled with handcuffs to the point where they're bleeding and their skin is cut, and sometimes even too, you could pretty much see the bones because of how much these cuffs have cut the people down. Waterboarding, whipping, basically anything torturous you can think of is showcased in this movie, and it is done pretty vividly, and sometimes they go into almost like a Requiem of a Dream or Max Payne level editing, where it gets really loud and heavy in terms of saturation on the screen to showcase just how much pain this person must have been feeling. And like I said, it is very vivid, very well done, but sometimes it can be a little too much in terms of just the colors they're throwing on screen, how quickly the audio changes. If it was mixed maybe a little better, this would have came out feeling a lot nicer, but again, they do showcase it in a very respectful and true manner, which I did quite appreciate. So with all this taken together, I would recommend The Mauritanian, and just with everything that I've said, the good and the bad, I'm going to score it a 7 out of 10. So if you've seen this movie, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and if you want to check out all of my other movie reviews and everything I do on this YouTube channel and on my Twitch, you can do so through my playlist and my bio down below. Of course, if you like this video, give it the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, turn the ringer on if you want to know when I upload new videos. But yeah, it's awesome, guys.